Hello, welcome to Smart Investing. This is the session. Then we're going to review the NVIDIA earnings that happened yesterday, as I told you. Remember that the most important was the guidance. The guidance has been pretty good, but flattish, so not exciting. And also the beat has not been so exciting. So again, I told you that if this is not going to beat more than what the market expected by quite a good margin, then the stock will just trade slightly up or down, but will not move dramatically up. And this is what is happening now. The market, NVIDIA is probably trading at NVIDIA is trading at 140, which is not a huge gap up from what from the previous trading days, which was closing at 137. So it's not like you have a huge reaction to these earnings, although it's very good. But we're going to see the numbers as well as been the big challenges on NVIDIA earnings. More importantly, stay until the end of the video because we're going to watch a very critical video about an interview with Jensen and what the challenge is around China, the Chinese market, and what he sees as the future of NVIDIA. So please stay tuned and let's go through it. So let's look at the summary of what happened yesterday on the earnings. So obviously NVIDIA reported its fiscal earnings of Q1 2026, delivering record revenue and facing challenges due to the US export restriction to China. Here is a comprehensive breakdown. Revenue 44 billion, up 69% year over year, surpassing the expected 43 billion. Adjusted earning per share 0.81, slightly below the anticipated 0.88, excluding a 4.6 billion charge related to unsold H20 chips, mainly actually targeted for the Chinese market due to export restrictions. EPS would have been 0.96, which again showed that the Chinese market is very important to NVIDIA bottom line. Data revenues center is 39 billion, a 73 increase from the previous year, driving by strong demand in AI infrastructure. Gross margin is coming down 61% from 73.5% in the previous quarter, primarily due to the inventory charges, excluding the charges, gross margin would have been 71.3. So that's mean definitely the trend is the margin are going down, the growth rate is decelerating, and that's the key challenge with NVDA and why it's not skyrocketed to the upside. And I hear a lot of comments on YouTube and on the MSNBC or CVC or whatever, the financial channels or your big YouTube channels. They don't see that there is no room for NVIDIA to actually break an all-time high, you know. I don't see NVIDIA with this type of earning breaking an all-time high. You see, if it was about to break an all-time high, it would have broken it already for after the earnings report yesterday. You can see that this is having a lot of difficulties to go above 140, and you can be sure that, you see, we are just at the upper limit of the Bollinger Bands, and NVIDIA will retrace back to around 120. This is not for this time that NVIDIA will break out, and it will continue to trade within this channel between the 100 marks and the 150 marks. So you just don't listen to all these people tell you that it's going to go to the moon and this is a game changer or whatsoever. No, this is not. This is not. With decelerating growth, decelerating margin, huge challenges for the Chinese market. I mean, don't expect NVIDIA to go to the moon for sure, 100%. And we can see it's not going to the moon. 4.65% after this historical earnings is nothing, you know, is nothing at all. The NVIDIA has given us a lot of habits that it's going to be by 50%, 30%, 100%, you know, in the past. But no, these days are over, you know. These days are over. We're not going to see that ever again unless something dramatically changed. And that's why the market, pre-market, was very excited and up a lot. And it actually retraced back, you know. That's the thing for NVIDIA. So what can we say also about NVIDIA earning? Impact of China export restrictions. First of all, the inventory charge, because of course the H20 was designed specifically for the Chinese market, so they couldn't sell it to the Chinese market, so they have to take a loss, you know. So that actually cost them 4.5 billion. And there are some missed revenue, of course. They were unable, of course, to sell an additional 2.5 billion worth of H20 chips in the quarter due to these restrictions. So basically, NVIDIA outlook, NVIDIA anticipate an 8 billion revenue loss in Q2 forward 2026 due to ongoing export limitation. So basically, you can see 8 billion they are losing revenue opportunity because they are restricted to the Chinese market. So let's say now that if there is an agreement with the Chinese about the trade war that they are doing with Chinese, so this is going to be a huge catalyst for NVIDIA. You know, just imagine they can unlock this 8 billion revenue loss if they find an agreement and they can export again this chip to Chinese markets. And China is a huge market for AI and intelligent artificial, you know. So this is something that we need to look for when we're gonna assess the potential for NVIDIA going forward, you know. So the guidance were not so exciting also. That's why the stock is not skyrocketed. I mean, the guidance were 45 billion, factoring an anticipated 8 billion loss from continued export restrictions. But 45 billion is barely above what they did right now, because they did about 45 something billion. So we are just having a guidance of flattish revenue, which is not so excited as well. You know, gross margin expected to be 71.8, 72%, not very exciting compared to what we've seen in the past. And operating expenses is projected to be at 5.7 billion GAAP adjusted and 4 billion non-GAAP adjusted. So strategic development, Jensen Huang highlighted the surging global demand for NVIDIA infrastructure, noting that AI inference token generation has increased tenfold within a year. And that's a very good news for AMD, because AMD is more specialized toward the inference as opposed to large language model and learning, you know. So product innovation company announced that its Blackwell NVL72 AI supercomputer is now in full-scale production across system makers and cloud service providers. So during the call, he was talking about all the hyperscalers that were actually ramping up huge amount of Blackwell chips, and this is going to be the key driver for growth and revenue for NVDA probably by the end of this year and 2026 and going forward. Global expansion, NVIDIA is expanding its global footprint. So we have seen, of course, in the press and in the news, that the trip of Donald Trump going into Middle East and so on, and they actually have managed to ink some huge deals, you know, in partnership to build AI factories in Saudi Arabia and UAE, and plan to work with Foxconn and Taiwan government to build an AI factory supercomputer. So, you know, despite the EPS miss, NVIDIA's strong revenue performance optimistic led to a positive market reaction, within share rising 5% after hour of trading. But 5% is nothing, you know. So again, let's look at the video that I was talking to you about the interview with Jensen, about what he thinks about the Chinese market, the challenges, and where you see that huge problem going forward. And what I'm going to tell you also from now is, what are your thoughts on NVIDIA latest earnings, and do you believe the company's strong AI-driven growth can offset the challenges posed by export restrictions? Share your insight below, please. So let's go through the video right now.
Well, Jensen, welcome back to Mad Money.
Hey, Jim, it's great to be here.
All right, so let's go to, it's a remarkable quarter in every single way, but you do say, I'm going to go right there, that China is positioned to lead globally, and you do not think that unless you can sell to China, you can necessarily lead with them. And I look at this market and I'm saying there's $50 billion up for grab. I actually think it could literally be all yours if there weren't export controls. Am I wrong? And how much of that money would flow back to the United States if you could do the sales?
NVIDIA's market share in China was about 95% 4 years ago. It's about 50% today because of the limitations on the products that we sell. $50 billion a year market today. It's growing just like AI is growing everywhere. Over the course of this 4 years, the president's administration, we're probably talking about a few $100 billion worth of revenues to NVIDIA, probably tens of billions of dollars of taxes, revenues to the country, thousands of jobs, incredible opportunity. But more strategically, more importantly, this is very important. First of all, the China market is, of course, very large, but it's also the home of 50% of the world's AI researchers. The platform that succeeds is the platform with the most developers. Just like iPhone's successful because of lots of developers, Windows successful because of lots of developers, all these platforms succeed because there are a lot of developers. China is home to 50% of the AI researchers in the world. And so we want the world to build on American technology stack. We want every developer in the world to prefer the American technology stacks. Once that happens, the developers develop on American technology stacks will run AI the best all over the world. And so that's probably the most important strategic reason to be in China, because there are so many developers there and because the world is going to adopt technology from one country or another, and we prefer it to be the American technology stack.
Well, you know the president has a plan. You say that. He has a vision, and you trust him. You say that. I have to believe that you think that he has to either see the light, or he has, and that things that look so dire right now in China may not be as dire, and there could be, even as soon as next quarter, more business being done than we thought after tonight.
It's hard to tell, but the most important thing is this, Jim. Our president wants America to win. And he also recognizes that this is an important market. It's a very large market. And the revenues that it could generate for the United States is significant. It's just incredible. $50 billion this year. Look, we're talking about the size of a Boeing, not a Boeing plane, Boeing the company. This is an enormous market. And so I think the opportunity left behind is quite substantial. This is also an excellent way to improve our trade deficit.
It would also seem to be that there must be some people who think that they can militarize your chips. I can't imagine a scenario where they would decide, you know what, we're going to use NVIDIA chips on our aircraft carriers. We'd put them on our submarines. Wouldn't that be foolhardy? We would never use Huawei chips in our missiles.
That's exactly right. They have plenty of chips themselves. Obviously, we're losing market share to chips that are built locally. China is an extraordinary manufacturing capability. And they are doubling the number of chips that they're building every single year. The technology that's being offered by Huawei is extraordinary. This is an extraordinary technology company. And so we have plenty of competition there. Chinese government has plenty of choices with indigenous technology, which is their preference. And so I think that the idea that, anyhow, go ahead.
But isn't it true that the president has helped you immeasurably? The huge business that you're doing in the Gulf states. When you see him, he obviously is, in many ways, NVIDIA's #1 salesperson. Is it asking too much to be able to say, and not only that, Mr. President, I also want you to open China?
Well, we're going to keep our dialogue going with the administration, and I believe that what we're explaining is ground truth, and we understand the technology best, and we understand how computing works, we understand how AI works, and we've been in China for 30 years, and so this is an area that we have a lot of expertise, and we're going to continue to share that. But let me tell you this, Jim. Listen, the president laid out a bold vision for United States, for America to reindustrialize the onshore manufacturing so that we can have a more resilient supply chain, so that we can create jobs locally, very importantly, so that we become great at manufacturing again. At a time when manufacturing isn't about labor, but it's about labor only, but it's about technology. And so that vision is incredible. This initiative by the president is likely going to set the United States up for a century, for this century to come. This is going to be a very big deal. I also think that when he rescinded the AI diffusion rule, it was a visionary move, it was a bold move, and he recognizes that there's an AI race and we're not alone. And he wants America to win. And so it's not about AI diffusion limitation, it's about AI diffusion maximizing American technology.
Okay, so
he sees that.
Okay, so let's talk about the Blackwell ramp, which was amazing, and of course we're going to have Ultra, which is incredible, and the demand. Is the demand, as when I saw you the last few times, it sounds like you're running out of superlatives, but demand seems even stronger than GTC, even stronger than Computex.
The demand keeps growing because there's just more companies. Well, number one, inference has taken off. That is number one. Inference has taken off. This reasoning AI capability is genuinely a breakthrough. It is now so popular, solving so many problems, and the amount of computation necessary for reasoning, for thinking, is 100 times, 1,000 times more than a couple of years ago when ChatGPT was a one-shot answer AI. And so now these reasoning AIs requires a lot of thinking, a lot of compute. The demand is just incredible.
Now you're telling me even since GTC,
we're getting more customers.
But even since GTC, you just increased it. It was 100 times less GTC. Now it's possibly even 1,000. Yeah. How is this possible, Jensen? And why are there still people who are holding back and not seeing what you're doing? We will all have robots. We will all have we'll have hands-free driving. All this is going to come about much faster than people realize because of what you're working on.
Tu sais que Sophie m'a appelé hier soir? Ah, et alors? Ça marche super bien son entreprise, elle explose. Par contre, elle a plus de vie, elle passe sa vie au téléphone, elle n'a pas pris de vacances depuis 2 ans.
It's completely true. Robotics is definitely within the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. The technology works today. It's starting to work very well today. Now, once a technology becomes realized, becomes possible, it's only a couple of 2-3 ticks for an engineer to crank it and turn it into something that could be really scaled out in volume. And so self-driving cars are here, that we know. Robotics is going to be right around the corner. robotic factories being built around the world. Yeah, this is the next great growth opportunity.
All right, so let's talk software. I don't think enough is talked about software. I don't think we're not talking about Omniverse enough, and we're not talking about the idea that you're just not selling these devices. You're selling a full platform that's not duplicable, which is why you're so far ahead of everybody else. It's not just about the hardware.
We used to be a chip company, and then we became a systems company. And Jim, you know now, we're an entire infrastructure company. If you take a look at what we build, it's an entire factory. And you can't just load up a factory with chips. You got computing systems, you got networking systems and switches, but what you have mostly is a mountain of software to get it all to run. When you've got a $50 billion infrastructure, the software necessary to keep it humming and to make the utilization and the efficiency and its throughput as high as possible, that piece of software is invaluable. If the utilization was 10% off, that's worth $5 billion. And so this is a very big deal now. Software is just a giant part of our business.
Okay, how about we have to talk about society, and when I hear what you can do, when I hear what the robots can do, when I know what Boston Dynamics, 1X, when I see what these companies can do, I wonder, is the CEO of Anthropic going to be right when he talks about a bloodbath of white-collar workers, unemployment spiking 10 to 20%, mass elimination of jobs? Or is it your vision that productivity, like whether it be the loom, whether it be the canal, whether it be the steam engine, these were all generators of jobs, not retractors of jobs?
It's a generator of jobs. There are surely different views. Let me give you this view.
Okay.
There's a labor shortage between now and the end of the decade that's measured in some 30, 40, 50 million short. If you just translate 50 million people short in labor force and translate that to GDP growth, it's extraordinary. It's approximately about the size of the United States. And so the ability for us to expand what is today a limited and short labor shortage, we around the world should be able to expand our GDP, and that's our future, to be able to, turn these agents, which are essentially workforce robots, information robots, and humanoid robots, physical robots, to expand the world's GDP.
All right, one last question from me. I want to be sure that we have a smooth transition to the next iteration, to Ultra, and then even to Rubin. How are we feeling? Because I know that there was a glitch. I got a little too aggressive in thinking everything would be smooth. I got ahead. I don't want to get ahead of myself this time. We looking good?
Well, first of all, Jim, remember, we made last quarter, we made the quarter before that. So it was not easy. It was not easy. And let me tell you why it wasn't easy. In the case of Grace Blackwell, because of this thinking machine we wanted to create, this reasoning AI factory we wanted to create, we changed the architecture of these AI supercomputers. The architecture is completely different, and it's extraordinarily complex. And so anyways, now the entire supply chain, not only that, we enabled a very, very large supply chain to be able to build these things. Every ODM, every OEM, CSPs, they've now got it up and running.
Okay.
And now here's the really great thing. Ultra is exactly the same architecture, exactly the same chassis, and so we'll just slip it right in and keep running.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I wish you the best of luck. Congratulations on an amazing quarter, and let's see if the president's plan includes opening China back for you. Thank you so much.
So basically, you see that this video is going to give you a glimpse of the possibility of NVDA. This is an incredible company. This is the future. I'm still heavily invested in NVDA. I'm not going to sell anything. I'm not going to also top up my investment in NVDA because I believe there is more upside potential for AMD. Other than that, he told you that China is a key market for AI. And if they manage to find an agreement with them to unlock the potential for China, this is going to be huge. They talk about 50 billions plus, even more than that. So having this time is exciting in the market. If you want to make a lot of money, if you want to build your wealth, this is the time now to invest in the market. The next 5 to 10 years will make you millionaire, This growth that we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years is nothing like we've seen in the past. So thanks very much for watching, and see you next. Bye.